Welcome to Shattered Reality with your hosts Kate Valentine and Fahrusha. Prepare to have your paradigms shifted and your truths questioned. And now, Shattered Reality.
Well, here we are again, Fahrusha.
Hi,
Hi.
Kate. How's it going?
It's going great. I was glad to see you over at Pine Bush this past weekend.
Yeah, it was so nice of the Bronxville Paranormal Society to give us a part of their table, and we could sit there and be part of the Pine Bush UFO Festival.
That
It
was
was a lot of fun. There were a lot of lovely people there, and there was tasty food, and a good time was had
Food
by...
was very good, actually.
Yeah, a good time was had by all. By the way, today is May 31st, 2016. Got a slate.
Oh,
Always
I
on a
see.
slate.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And today we have a really interesting and marvelous guest online here, and especially for you and I, and even our wonderful engineer Bill, because we are all animal lovers.
True.
And Kate, I think that you're a dog whisperer, and I know that I'm a cat whisperer.
Okay.
So today, we want to welcome Rosalyn Berne, PhD. She has a background in bioethics. She is the author of 4 books. One of them is a novel called Waiting in Silence. And the second is Creating Life from Life, about the biotechnological revolution.
Oh, that's fascinating.
I would really almost like to have her back just
Yeah,
to
we
talk
may
about
have to, yeah.
ethicism, bioethicism. The other 2 books are about her as a horse whisperer. The first one is When the Horses Whisper, and that is about equine healing work and interspecies communication. And then there is Walking to Beauty, Encounters with Remarkable Beings. And about that, I want to say Beauty is a horse.
Wow, that's a great name for it. What
So
was
welcome.
that? Black Beauty was the it was Elizabeth Taylor was in that.
Yes,
that was
yes.
some movie. That was
Yes.
a little horse that made it big in the racing circuit or something. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a beautiful movie, and it really introduced Elizabeth Taylor to many
Yeah.
Americans.
Yeah.
But now,
Yes,
let's
I'm sorry.
introduce Rosalyn
Yes.
Berne to our Americans and foreign listeners.
Yes.
So, Rosalyn, so pleased to have you on, Dr. Rosalyn Berne.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much for taking this time.
It's a delight to be with you. I appreciate your reaching out.
Well, my first question would be like, for the sake of the listeners, how did you come about with the horse whispering, the interspecies communication, if you will?
Well, it wasn't by intention, that's for sure. I was actually on a trail ride on a horse named Titan in Costa Rica, and I was there for the purpose of finishing that novel you made reference to, and I took a break from the riding and took a trail ride. We crossed the River Arenal on horseback. I fell off my horse somehow. I don't know how. I remember the rushing water going over my head, and I was fine, not hurt at all. Stood up. It was shallow enough to stand up. Got out and climbed back on the horse. And as we proceeded to continue the walk, I began to hear him in a way that I'd never experienced communicating with any being, human or otherwise, before. So it was quite unanticipated, but it was very natural. It was sort of a wonderful experience. We had a conversation all the way back to the barn.
What was it about? I mean, because I'm really curious.
Of course. He started it.
Oh, okay.
The first thing I heard is, I can't believe that happened. No one's ever fallen off of me before. Am I going to be
Wow.
Are you okay? Did you get hurt? What happened? And I realized he was upset.
Uh-huh.
And that I could hear him. It's sort of like a speaker inside of my ear. It was literal. And I responded silently, like communicating, but without spoken words, but using words. And I said, Titan, I'm fine. Stop worrying about me. Can't you tell there's nothing wrong? I fell off. It wasn't your fault. I must have slipped. And it went like that. Mm-hmm. And then he said, well, am I going to be in trouble? My job is to keep riders safe. That this, I work here, and I don't know what's going to happen now. Am I going to be in trouble? And I said, well, of course not. You're going to be in trouble. So it was all like that. And then we were close back, and I could see the barn ahead. And there were maybe 6 of us in the ride, and the owner of this eco-village sort of retreat was up front. And her name is Debbie. So at this point, he says, you can actually understand me, can't you? And I said, yeah, we've been talking. And he said, good, I need for you to do something for me. And I asked him, what do you need, Teton? And he said, tell Debbie she's wrong. I don't need any more training.
Oh.
So I got off of the horse and I waited till the other guests were gone because I didn't really know what to make of this or what people would make of me.
Sure.
And I waited to tell Debbie privately in the tack room. She gave me a funny look when I told her. And then a few hours later at dinner, she came up to me in the dining room and whispered, how do you know about that? And I said, about what? And she said, how do you know about Teton? I don't understand how you could know. The stableman and I, for the last week, have been talking about sending him back for more training. Please explain that to me. And that's where it began.
Wow, that's interesting. I was wondering, too, the trainer and so on, if that was in Costa Rica, probably their native tongue is Spanish, too, right?
Well, these horses were all born and raised. They're about 20 in the herd there, and they work, with tourists doing Ipona workshops and trail rides. So they are going to hear mostly Spanish because the stablemen speak Spanish.
Right.
Debbie, the owner, speaks in English. But I don't think that language...
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah. I think what happens, although I would love to talk with a linguist about this, or maybe a cognitive science, I don't know who would really have the answer, but I'm presupposing that the mind, the brain itself, forms meaning and the intention to convey or express that meaning to another. And then words are sort of ascribed to express that meaning, right? I'm thinking that language comes after the formulation of intent to communicate.
I think so. That's an interesting point.
I don't know what your personal feelings are about ETs possibly communicating with humans, aliens and ETs communicating with humans, but I am told, and I have experienced communication that was in my mind and formed English words, and other people have too had that happen in whatever language they spoke from the ET presence. So since they communicate directly telepathically, why not horses and dogs and cats and others?
Could be. I certainly stand willing to learn, and I don't have a clear idea of the mechanism, the biological mechanism, but I trust what I heard, and it's certainly been corroborated many, many, many times over since that first experience 6 years ago.
Well, from reading your most recent book, that you have a publishing party coming up now, I believe, that your latest book, Walking to Beauty, I was struck by how much your experiences in the book were very much like mine in many ways, and also entirely different. By that I mean the actual experiences were very much similar, not the same, but similar. But then the way you reacted or interacted with those experiences were totally different. And so I was very fascinated by that, and really enjoyed the book thoroughly. Are you going to continue and write another book of that nature?
Well, you know what's really funny? This is interesting to me. You are anticipating without realizing what you've been saying. Twice you've said the book title as Walking to Beauty, and it's Waking to Beauty. But what's really funny is the next book that I've just begun is Walking with Raven, and I think maybe you perhaps you've tuned into that somehow already.
Well, that's possible because I wrote down here Waking to Beauty.
Yeah, but you said walking twice, and I have just titled that book recently. Actually, my husband picked the title Walking with Raven. So isn't that interesting, huh?
Yes, yes.
Maybe that's a whole other conversation about time and whether it even exists, right? So that's a different answer.
That's a very lengthy answer.
That would be a very long discussion as to whether time exists and what it means and all of that.
Who's Raven? Is it another horse or is it the actual Raven?
Okay, this is a great story. I was hired by one of my clients. I now am offering my services as an equine empath, and I have about 15 clients who occasionally bring me onto their horse farms to help them communicate with their horses and figure out what's going on. And one of my new clients had adopted a horse from the Virginia Equine Welfare Society, VEWS. And about 6 months later, they wrote to her and said, "You mentioned a woman, Rosalyn Berne, who helped you with your horse. We're having trouble with one of our newest horses. Do you think she could come?" So my client, Renee, as a gift to them, hired me, took me there. It's about an hour and 20 minutes ride from where I live in Central Virginia. And I went and I was helping them with a horse who had been rescued from a pretty traumatic situation, a place called New Holland, which is where they ship horses who are on their way to be sold for meat packing, etc. At any rate, they had pulled her out of this facility and were trying really hard to help her to be well and stabilized and then be adopted. And she was struggling. So there I was. And I was working with her. And then while there, I started checking in with some of their other horses. I thought, why not be helpful and talk to the others? And I'm focusing on a horse named Rain. And I'm standing there looking at her, and there's a group of people standing around. And up behind me walks this horse whose name is Raven. And it was a little bit distracting because I'm trying to talk to Rain, and she's actually talking to me, but then I hear Raven. And I hear her right behind my right shoulder. And she's saying, "I'm the horse that you need. I'm the horse that's going to help you deepen your work. Take me home with you." And I finally stopped and turned around and said, "Raven, I heard you, but I need to focus on what I'm doing." And I continued to talk to Rain. And then I left and got in the car with my client, and Raven was in my heart. She was just there. And I couldn't stop thinking about her. And so 3 days later, I wrote to the facility and I said, "I've never owned a horse before. I don't even consider myself a horse person. I do this because it's a gift and I feel called to do it, but I feel like Raven is supposed to be with me." Long story short, Raven is my horse now.
Wonderful, wonderful.
I'm her person. And the journey has begun. It's already quite profound. So I am working on a new manuscript. It may take me a year or two, but it is called Walking with Raven.
Oh, wow.
Because that's a little harder than adopting a dog or a cat.
Yes, a lot harder than adopting a cat.
With the fact that you need about 2 to 4 acres plus fence and farriers and all that.
Yeah, that's not an inexpensive hobby.
Indeed, it is not. Well, and so things have worked out well with Raven, and she is the subject, a large amount of the subject of your newest book.
So my newest book that just came out, the subject is beauty. Yes. She is a mare who lives in Costa Rica. Yes, Raven is happily boarded. My husband and I have put up our house for sale. We're moving to a horse farm so Raven can live with us. So as I say, I'm her person, but she's settling in nicely, and I will probably be engaging her to work with me to do seminars and to do readings with people facilitated by Raven. That's my new life. Beauty, I've known for 6 years. She is a wise being. She's a being that appeared to me in a waking dream state and asked me to continue to write. And I went then to see her to find out what it was she thought I should be writing about. That's the whole second half of the book, Waking to Beauty.
Yes. So horses are I've always loved horses. They've always seemed to be incredibly noble. And yet I haven't ridden much since I was a teenager. And in fact, have a certain amount of, well, beyond respect, a little bit of fear of getting on the back of horses. But I do trust them. On the other hand, I think that I would probably only be hurt because of my own inabilities.
Well, you're speaking to someone who's not a rider. I can ride. It's not something that I have longed to do. The one reason why that book is titled Walking with Beauty is that that's what we do. I walk next to her for exercise. Riding, my gosh, it's a whole world that I'm learning about, and it runs the gamut from the racing industry to dressage, to barrel racing, and Raven used to be a barrel racer, to trail riding horses. My exposure now is broadening because my clients are coming from all those different areas. I can say that when I've been on trail rides, most of them, not the place in Costa Rica, but most of them, the horses are so checked out, they're so sullen and withdrawn that I can't reach them. I think that they're sort of just broken down.
Yes, they seem sad. And when I've ridden, when I have worked in New York State as an entertainer and have been given the privilege of being able to ride a horse the day before, the day after my booking, it always seemed sort of sad to me. The horses seemed sad and most of them very, very nice, but just, as you say, checked out perhaps, but very sad, weary and sad. But I do love and respect horses, and I think they have wonderful hearts.
Well, that's the thing about a horse. Their capacity to pump blood is many, many, many times greater than ours in terms of the volume that's moved through their bodies per minute. They are heart-centered creatures. Although, of course, their other organs are engaged in their survival, just like ours, for some reason, they are still very much centered in their hearts, the healthy ones, right? The healthy ones, the ones that haven't been broken and brutalized and, abused. I'm sorry?
No, I think they are, of all domesticated animals, the most abused. It's some of the purposes that they're used for is just hideous, and slaughter is probably number one. And number two, I don't know, the racing industry done properly, I guess, is okay, but there's so much shenanigans, it's ridiculous.
They get doped up, yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
I'm sad about what I'm learning.
Yeah, me too.
It's true with a lot of our industries that are so intensely driven by the profit motive. But I have to believe and hope that individual owners love their horses. My husband and I just watched Secretariat, the Disney film.
Yes.
And of course, it's portrayed in a certain way.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But it still made me cry because of the love that horse was so devoted to the people in its life, it appeared to be. And that's the thing about these creatures. We do abuse them, and they continue to support and serve us despite that.
Yeah. Do you feel too, I mean, certainly you obviously have a connection to horses. Do you think that, as Fahrusha mentioned at the beginning, certain people have an affinity towards certain species?
Well, yes, my sister's a dog person. Mm-hmm. And here's an example. She served as a sheriff for the LA Sheriff's Department until she retired recently. And she was held in very high esteem as a professional policewoman. She was only once taken off of her job and reprimanded, and it was because she hesitated to shoot a dog that was lunging towards her. Oh. And she was traumatized by it because she couldn't kill it, even though it was positioned to attack and hurt her. It was a dog on a site where they were people were smuggling some kind of drug trade. I think so. And anyway, so I'm trying to tell the story because that's how much she loves dogs, and she's in her bones. Dogs are her children. I know a lot of people whose dogs are very much family members and beloved, and they also are attuned to them. There's lots of reasons why that might be. We could speculate. on past life experiences and all kinds of influences. I'm happy to pet a dog and say hello to a dog, but I won't let it kiss me on my lips. My sister will. That's how I know she's one and I'm not.
Well, how are you with horses? But
Like horses.
So, one of the things that you are doing with the horses, and so is Debbie, I understand, is working with abused kids for equine therapy sessions.
oh, nice.
So Debbie's in Costa Rica. She's an expat who left the U.S. and bought this land and set up this facility, and then became trained as an Epona instructor, which is equine-assisted forms of therapy. One of the groups that she has volunteered with is a safe house in Costa Rica, and this particular safe house is to protect and house women, young girls actually, 12, 13, 14, 15, who have been subject to pretty dramatic sexual abuse, some of them even placed on the street in sex trafficking operations. And so I have, on 3 occasions, been there during workshops with these girls and been able to, or with their director, and been able to tune in to the horses and their work with these girls. One very interesting story is one day the director was there, not the girls, and she was talking with Debbie about one particular girl. Mm-hmm. And the horse who'd been assigned to this girl was in the area and started getting very agitated and clearly needed to talk. And I tuned in, and he wanted to talk about the girl. And I didn't, and long story short, we actually called her. She had stopped talking and withdrawn and would not communicate with anybody at the house and was sort of hiding and cowering. And they didn't know how to help her. And the horse was hearing this whole conversation. So I talked to the horse, and I actually then asked them to call the girl on the telephone, which they did. And then they brought the phone towards me and next to the horse, and I explained to her that the horse was listening and what he was saying. And then you could hear her begin to sob. And then I understand she began to talk. And so he was able to reach her indirectly in that way, but he sensed her, and he could pick up that she needed him in being, just hearing them discuss what was going on with her. It was quite moving.
Yeah, really.
There are wonderful programs of that nature. I don't know how many people have your ability to actually hear the horses speak, but I do know that a young girl of my acquaintance who is about 22 now, when she was 17 or 18, she spent the summer walking with horses and putting children on the horses, like, younger teenagers, I believe, who had developmental difficulties, and they were withdrawn. And as they got up on the horses and were able to have this girl walk the horses, and with that child on the horse's back, the children improved greatly in their socialization and became a lot more pliable and workable.
There are so many wonderful stories all over the world. These programs are proliferating, and I'm so very glad that...
And such a wonderful use. Well, I hate to even use the word use, but such a great purpose for the horse.
But the horses are fulfilled in this work.
Yeah.
They are so wanting to have something valuable and helpful to do with their lives. I mean, they really do, like we do. Mm-hmm. People want to feel like we have a purpose in our lives, and the horses are the same. And so I understand they're also working with some people who are incarcerated and working with vets who are still dealing with some of the stress, post-traumatic stress.
Yeah.
And so, and even the companionship of a horse who's ridden by a police officer, right? That becomes a very supportive relationship potentially for that officer.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, there are all kinds of wonderful ways that we can honor their willingness to support us the way they do so beautifully.
And dogs as well like to feel as though they have a job. I know that from different people who are working with dogs, including the late Captain Haggerty. He always felt as though he was a famous dog trainer in the New York area and with theater and so forth. And he felt most of the dogs that he had always wanted to work, wanted to have a job, wanted to be told what to do. Particularly the German Shepherds, which he worked with, they were always guarding things and they wanted to be told, sit over there, and if somebody comes, bark, and then run down the aisle or whatever, get us. So they really understood him, and they understood what he wanted them to do, and they did it.
There are some mooches, though, in the dog world.
There are mooches in the dog
Yeah,
world.
let me tell you, I've got a few.
You spoil them. In any case, the one thing that I found very interesting about your communication with the horses, as opposed to, and I have done, some professional work with cats as a cat communicator with other people's cats besides my own, and I get some very interesting feedback from them and finding out about their life. And one cat in particular, the family was going to move to California, and the cat told me he in no way wanted to go. Please tell them I do not want to go. And I told the family he did not want to go, but they were determined to move to California and determined to take the cat. Well, the second day they were out there, he got out the door and he was immediately run over and killed.
Oh, great.
So that was not a happy ending, but that was not my point. My point and my question to you has to do with in my communication with cats and a few other animals, they will tell me what they want to eat or what's going wrong or things of that nature, who they like best and things directly about them. But with the horses, you seem to get other stuff, such as more global concerns, which thus far I have not received that form of communication from anything but the trees.
Yes. So I would want to explain that Beauty is an unusual horse in that way. And so most of the horses I've communicated with are talking about ailments, emotional issues, people that are no longer in their lives, or horses they've been separated from. Very practical, rather mundane things that are helpful for their own lives. That's 95% of it.
Right.
It's a rare horse, Beauty, and then a horse named Felice here in Virginia, and then Wano, the stallion, who had to chime in when he heard Beauty talking. They are working with people who come for therapeutic support, or who don't realize that they come for that, and their lives change as a result of having encounters with these horses in the Epona program. So Beauty is seeing people on a very different level. She's engaging people in her daily work, supporting children with various disorders and ailments and struggles, supporting people who are just stressed out and emotionally broken, and she's taking it in and observing and thinking about it. And that's what's so extraordinary.
Yes.
Most of us assume that because they're animals, they don't have this capacity, that all they're going to be concerned about are their basic fundamental needs and desires, right? Eating and getting outside and sleeping, etc. And that's why I feel like I really do need to talk about this, because what I've learned is that, at least in the case of these animals, and I think it's probably true with others, perhaps elephants and maybe dolphins, some of them are processing and thinking and considering larger issues than themselves. And Beauty is absolutely concerned about humanity's survival.
Well, just like people. I mean, there are some people that are just very mundane and people who really are deep thinkers and try to help the rest of us.
Like my students range that way.
Yeah. And you know what interests me, too, is that you obviously communicate with horses and your sister with dogs. Some of the native peoples would, you fill me in on this term, Fahrusha, adopt certain animals as like witches have
Totem animal?
Yeah, a totem animal. Thank you. I wonder if that hasn't been true throughout history, that some people really did have the ability to not adopt, but really communicate, become one with another animal, with another species.
Well, that certainly has been very prominent in the Native American cultures.
Yeah.
There are various cultures, whether it be North or South American cultures. I mean, the people down in South America have a close relationship with the condor.
Yeah, and even on the cave drawings, they didn't draw each other; they drew animals.
That's right.
And are there any other people in your family that also have this ability?
Not that I'm familiar with. And I don't know that my sister would claim to be a dog communicator, but she certainly is so very connected to them that she deeply, right? Like many do.
She does. She does on some level. I'm sure she does.
Probably so. I would. I once was on a walk in the country of Belize, and the tour guide clearly he grew up. He said he grew up as a boy playing in the jungle by himself, and he was tuned into all of it.
Yeah.
All of it. The birds, the trees, the whole life force of that forest he was attuned to. And I want to believe that it has been innate in human beings since our, early beginnings, but that over time, as we have developed as more agrarian and technological, we've developed other parts of our brain and moved away from those sensing capacities. That would be my hunch.
I think you're right.
I would agree.
It's not just about Native Americans or the people living in the Amazon. It's actually about the human being and how we've developed our cultures and our societies and our tendencies. That's my guess, right? Because you had the Druids, right over, they were in Ireland, Scotland area, who were very much connected to the earth force and the divine mother practices. And I think that it's just more about modernization of society, the rapid movement of information, our high dependence on technologies that have shifted our perceptions and our capacities for such communication.
I agree with you 100%.
Well, I think that you are right, especially in some of the things that you have written about basically the earth being alive, and we're all part of it. And as we move away from the awareness of the living earth, we get closer to our own annihilation. And unfortunately, as we get closer to it, I think that as helpful as the horses and the dolphins may be, there's a certain amount of self-interest there, because basically all mammals may go the way of the dodo bird if we do.
Yeah.
Why do you say that?
Well, probably. What are you thinking? Nuclear war or something?
No, I mean the nuclear meltdown is one thing. I'm not looking
just
towards
ruining
the ecology. Some of which could be ruined.
Oh, you're seeing that already with a lot of species.
Yes, but some of it can be ruined with the nuclear materials, as we're seeing in Fukushima, and places melting down right here in the United States, not so far away from where we are. What is it over here? The nuclear.
Indian Point.
Indian Point. There's
the other thing too is all mammals are made out of carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, some other little atoms,
right.
And the more that one species sucks it all up, that's less for the others. So
that's true.
I
and
mean,
look
it's
at the
just a
horror
matter of
of
numbers.
the elephants right now. The sad. We can't go there. It's it's just beyond too sad.
You mentioned before, like communicating with animals. I mean, the people that work with elephants really know. They absolutely communicate with them constantly.
Absolutely.
And
there's a woman whose name is Jamie Sieber, and she played music for my wedding 2 years ago. And Jamie actually has a recording that she's made with elephants accompanying her.
That's nice.
She's a cellist, and it's haunting. They pick up these bamboo sticks and bells and play while she's playing, and
wow,
it touches my heart so deeply because the animals are truly connecting with her through the music. I think that you're right, that mammals are as much threatened as other mammals as we are, but I'll tell you what will survive no matter what we do would be the plants. They are
Yep.
they're the ones that have adapted so much sophistication through these billions of years, and they will be fine.
Had you read anything about how squids are getting larger and larger, and how intelligent squids are, the cephalopods, and how psychic they are, and how they don't have a central brain, but their whole body is like a nervous system with a consciousness, and how they're getting just much bigger and bigger in our oceans. Is their size, is the growth in their size relative to the growth in their intelligence? Is that what's being suggested, or is it? I don't know that, but there are two things that cephalopods, octopi,
Yeah, they're smart, those little devils.
and squids have been seen to be very psychic and extremely smart. And this, in spite of the fact that they do not have a brain in the sense that mammals have brains inside their heads. Their brain or nervous system is throughout their body. Now, concurrent to that, though I don't know if it's entirely related, oceanographers and biologists of the ocean have discovered that these squids appear to be getting larger and larger and may be taking over the oceans. And I say they hope they do a better job of it than the humans have.
Well, I'd be a little concerned about whether that's going to cause an imbalance in the other ocean life. I'd probably like to read up on that and see what they're thinking. Any one species that dominates can throw everything off kilter.
Wow. Sort of like humans, you mean?
Yeah, like humans.
Oh, yeah, that's a great example, isn't it?
Oh, perfect. It's
9
perfect.
billion and growing.
It always gets me in this area where they say we have to control the geese, we have to control the deer population. Well, yeah. Why would we have to do that? Well, because they kill off their surroundings if there's too many of them. Okay, so like any species that kills off their surroundings because there's too many of them should have population control. Right.
Well,
what about people? Oh, no, not people.
It's got to be voluntary, but
not people.
it's got to happen somehow.
It does. Well, unfortunately, Mother Nature will take care of it. If
Unfortunately,
any
yes.
herd that gets to be too big, old Mom Nature comes in and culls it. And you see the rise of all these various viruses, Zika virus, AIDS, TB's on the rise, measles, mumps.
All these things that in the 50s were thought to have been
conquered. They just came out with this new, as one MD got on about, there is finally an antibiotic, or rather a bacteria that doesn't respond to any antibiotic whatsoever. And it's pretty prevalent in the environment.
Oh, boy.
But other than that,
Well, we've gone a little bit far afield here.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay, Kate.
No.
Guilty too.
Dr. Berne is also a bioethicist, so
That's
right. I think this is of a very real concern for her.
Yes. So we have the ethics of cloning humans or cloning dogs, as people have done apparently already.
Yes.
And they are able to get their cloned doggies from China or something. So, oh well.
So you haven't gone that far afield, actually, because you're talking about Mother Nature. I think you used the term sort of responding to our population overgrowth. This is what Beauty was talking about.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
It's exactly what she was talking about. She said that the Earth is in a process of rejecting the human species because it's thrown off the homeostasis, the balance that Earth is trying to maintain. And that we are running out of time, although she said it's not too late because we are a beloved species. It's in the process of bringing it back into balance. So we have some choices to make, but we have to make them soon.
Yes.
What do you think the odds of that happening are?
Of our making healthy choices to bring it back into balance? I think it would take some kind of cataclysmic event to wake us up.
Yeah. I agree with you.
we're very self-absorbed, and we're really comfortable with the way we're living.
Materialistic. Beyond the materialism, I think that as long as people can't be humane to one another, and they can't be humane to men, can't be humane to women, and
Or to each other.
or to
really.
each other, or to their companion animals. I mean, it's just what can be expected. I'm not sure. My worry is about the methane release, in which case all species go down.
Well, that's all due to the cows. You know that.
No,
Flatulent.
no.
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Oh, hell yeah. Yeah.
I
You
thought
know
it
how
was
much methane a cow produces?
I thought it was the
And then you got McDonald's
tundra.
pushing out no, well, that too, but
The
no.
melting poles.
No. McDonald's has what, gazillion burgers being served? I
my.
mean, how many cows bit the dust on that one? And they all have been eating grain, and they've all been producing methane as a result of it.
They should be eating grass.
Don't light a match in a cow barn, let me tell you.
Oh, I'm not going to. I'm not planning to.
No, I'm not joking. Don't. But I'm sorry. That really is a field. But it's it's a shame. But I think there may be a glimmer of hope. For example, we were talking before the show about that horrible incident with the gorilla in the Cincinnati Zoo,
Right.
and people are outraged that the gorilla was killed to save a child. Or potentially save a child.
Well,
the
we don't
gorilla
know
certainly
what the
wasn't
gorilla
threatening it.
would do.
I think intentionally the gorilla would not have harmed the child, but just that they're so very strong, he
Yes.
might have harmed it unintentionally.
Yes. So where does the bioethics fall in that category, Rosalyn?
Well, it's just a tragedy, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yes.
all around, yes.
All around
Yes.
tragedy.
And that's so with bioethics, there are choices that we have to make to do the right thing, and we have to sort out sort of what that means. And one way of thinking through that is what's the greatest good for the many. I mean, that's one way of thinking about it. And then there are some absolutes, like we don't kill, for example, would be an absolute. I think this is a tragic situation because a decision had to be made very quickly.
Yes.
And we tend to want to protect the human life over animal life if we have to make a choice. That's our
Always, yes.
So the question is, did they use their best judgment to protect that child? And without having been there, and I'm not going to rely on the popular press, it's hard to know
Yes.
whether they did the best that they knew how to do. But I always like to presume that for people and just have to call this a tragedy.
Yes.
That's all.
Yes.
Well, the zoo people themselves were hardly happy about it. They were very upset themselves. They felt that a tranquilizer would have taken too long to have, the child would have still been endangered. And sometimes tranquilizers have a paradoxical effect, and it could have enraged the gorilla, and then he would have done harm. So I think to save the child, they really had no choice but to kill the gorilla. It's just a shame that the parents were, but I mean, that's,
How many gorillas still exist, though, in fact, of these big
well, that's
silverbacks?
That's it.
There
It's
are
endangered.
not very many of them left. Now, I'm not saying to start sacrificing children by any means, but there is that thought. It's sort of like these are an endangered species, and he was such a marvelous example of
Yeah.
gorilla pulchritude.
Yeah, well, I put the blame at the feet of the mother. I mean, if you take a 3-year-old child to a gorilla enclosure, I would assume you would watch the child.
You think?
Yeah, they're suing the zoo, of course.
Oh, well.
But anyway, so
So-
that's so much for bioethics and that.
So tell us a little bit more about Raven and your communications with Raven.
Well, it's interesting because I am responsible for her as her steward, and I have not engaged her in the same way I have horses of my clients, where I can walk in the door, go into a meditative state, listen to them, wish them well, and go home. With Raven, I am learning to be brave. She's a big animal. To go out into the field and be with her and take care of her. And I am having to center in and check in and be mindful so that I can listen to her. But it's a process. It's a process because I'm also thinking, is she going to step on me? Am I safe? Am I doing the right thing? Did I put the bridle on wrong? Did I hurt her? So I'm not there yet at the level of communication that we had when we first met, because I'm carrying this sense of responsibility and a little bit of anxiety in being so new to the whole thing.
So you were not raised with horses then?
No, I went to summer camp once when I was 12 and rode for a few weeks.
Only the horses that were in downtown Philly, right? I understand completely being a New York girl. Yeah.
They are big animals.
Yes, they
are. They
are.
really are. And and they can hurt you without meaning to, certainly. If
they can. Those are, and I was still so taken with them. I even remember as a child staring in the stables at Fairmount Park at these magnificent animals and feeling so drawn to them. I went up to a horse and at Central Park South, where they line up the horses with carriages, and one was standing on the corner there of Central Park South and Fifth, I think, where it comes in where the Helmsley is. Mm-hmm. And I asked the caregiver if I could talk to his horse, and the caregiver was checked out too, right? I mean, he's like, I just want to get people riding. And I went up to the horse who was behind blinders. They put blinders on their eyes.
Yes, they do.
Horrid, because a horse is only comfortable knowing it's safe with vision, and a horse can see almost back to its tail, but with blinders, it shuts down much of its sensing capacity. Anyway, I felt nothing. I found nothing. I couldn't connect. It's like the horse wasn't there. He just wasn't there.
He's just broken.
Raven, on the other hand, is full of life. And we went for a walk the other day, and I did not realize that there were 3 geldings in a pasture up the end of the trail, and they got one look at her, and they're huge. They're just huge. Mm-hmm. They were actually sent down from New York. The border calls them the New Yorkers. It's 3 of them. Anyway, they saw her, and they came running, galloping across the pasture in unison, and she bolted. It was so scary. But I was, I had her on the lead chain, and I luckily had been taught never wrap it around your hand, only over your hand. So I'm learning step by step what to do and how to take care, which is making it so I'm not yet at a point where I have stopped to just listen, really, truly listen. She's teaching me a lot right now, as best as she can.
So what happened with the 3 geldings?
Well, they were behind a fence. She didn't realize they weren't going to jump over it. They stopped at the fence. And she got very upset. And I said, "We're going to keep walking." And she's like, "The hell we are." I'd never seen her run before. It was beautiful to watch her run. And she ran all the way back to her pasture and stood there calmly waiting for me to join her. So we'll see. It's a journey. It's a mystery. I do not know what to expect. I still don't know why exactly I'm supposed to have her in my life. I am trusting this. I'm making a huge commitment to move to a farm, to be able to have her there.
Well, you'll like the farm anyway.
I think it'll be great to wake up and make some tea in the morning and go out and sit with her in the pasture. That's my fantasy. But then I have to, muck up the poop and all that other stuff. But it'll be good for me, right?
Yeah,
I
very
think
good.
So. Yeah, it's good.
You reconnect with the earth.
Good earth work.
Yeah.
So I think it's time, Rosalyn, if you don't mind, to mention your books again and your projects, because we're winding down to nearly a close here.
Oh, that's too bad. I could talk a lot longer.
It's been fun for me too.
But please tell us all about your books. And
the horse books is the subject of our conversation today, so I'll focus on those. When the Horses Whisper, I wrote 4 years ago after meeting Titan falling in the river and other horses that live in Costa Rica and work with these groups. And so that's been out and getting great responses from people who have read it. And then Waking to Beauty came because Beauty came to me in a vision and asked me to keep writing. And so that book is more autobiographical than the first one, because I was trying to sort of explain to readers how it is that I'm, in my life, come to a point where I can hear these animals. So I was trying to trace it back to my early days when I was, less than 2 and talking to ghosts and that kind of thing, to suggest that maybe there was something inside of me that was ready to respond to these horses when they began to talk. And that just came out 2 weeks ago. We're having a great book release party with some bluegrass and folk singers and readings down here in Central Virginia, which should be a lot of fun. But then next year I'll come back to the Equine Film Festival in New York and go other parts of the country to talk about this work in the book. I'm probably going to start a not-for-profit company for these writings to be shared with others and find ways to get this message out across the world that in fact these animals are sentient, aware, conscious, and very much devoted to supporting the continued thriving of human life on Earth. So I'm feeling called to do this. I'm excited. I'm continuing to be a professor, but this work is very much at the forefront of my time and efforts these days because it's very, very deep heart work.
Well, it's wonderful, wonderful.
If some of our listeners were interested in your services, can they contact you for that?
Sure.
You do that, for example, for horses in, I guess, the Northeast area?
I probably will start to stretch out. We'll see how it unfolds. Right now, I'm mostly in Virginia, but what I will be doing, I think, with Raven, and I'll adopt another horse to help, is offering seminars and workshops to help people, even people without horses. Because horses can help us with our intuition and our creativity and our inner attunement, awareness of our own body as a sensing, intelligent being that we can tap into to learn from. And so I'm working on developing these seminars. I'll put together something probably by the end of the summer or fall. WhenTheHorsesWhisper.com is one website that I'm working with. RosalynBerne.com is another.
And how do you spell your last name?
B-E-R-N-E. Yeah. Rosalyn, Rosalyn, Berne, Berne. I have a Facebook page where I post all kinds of things, interviews, podcasts, and short videos of my work. And so those are the ways people can get in touch with me. And I always write back. Sometimes it takes a little time. And I would love to hear from people, their responses, their own experiences with communicating with animals or attuning to the earth and themselves. I think a lot of us are attuning now together, and we're all coming into a new consciousness. It's a wonderful time to be alive. And I'm really grateful that you all are reaching out to talk with me.
Well, we're very, very happy to have you on.
Yes, definitely.
And we would hope to have you on again. And so we're going to wish you a good party coming up with your book, and tell all my Charlottesville friends hello. And I will be speaking with you, I am sure, in the future, as will Kate. So
definitely.
Bye now, Rosalyn from Shattered Reality. We're going to wrap it up now.
Okay. And thank you for all your work, too.
Yeah,
I really
we
appreciate
it.
As a fellow member of the human race.
In any case, we're going to just wrap it up
Okay.
with something strange that happened to me today.
Oh, I didn't know.
Yeah, something sort of, we think about the pixies taking things, and somehow some
there's
people
one
call
in
it
my house, I'm
the
sure of it.
borrowers and so forth. I had a needle and a thread.
Uh-huh.
The needle wasn't a small needle. It was a very, very large needle, like about 2.5 inches long, like a darning needle with a piece of thread on it. I had to move it from one floor to another, and I put it right on the top of the banister, which has got a flat top, about 4.5 inches by 4.5 inches, something maybe 5 by 5, I'm not sure. And I put it down there, and then I went to go up the stairs about 20 minutes later, and I looked all over the top. Now we're talking about a minuscule area, 5 by 5 at most, with this needle and thread on it. Not there. Felt all around, looked all around the side of the stair and the banister and everything, looked on the top again, felt around it. It was not there. I come back an hour later to do something else.
It's there.
Bigger than life. I mean, no way to avoid it. So those little borrowers, those little pixies are at work in that building is all I can tell you.
Okay.
So what do we have next coming up on Shattered Reality?
Oh, I'm not sure. You're pretty much the programmer. You do a great job at that.
Well, thank you so
I'm
much.
negligent.
And thank
Sorry.
you, Mr. Bill, for doing a great job with the audio.
And he talks to his dogs, too.
He talks to his dog. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mr. Bill talks to his dogs.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's okay. I talk to mine.
I talk to all the
I
cats I
don't
meet.
talk to my cat anymore because I'm ticked off at it.
Okay. I talk to every cat I meet. When I was down in Chincoteague Island, where all the ponies the wild
go,
ponies
yeah.
are, I wanted to see the ponies. I only saw a couple of ponies, not many at all.
They stopped a lot of that stuff.
But what I did, out in the parking lot, all the cats came right up to me out
Really?
of nowhere. They all came up. They found me. So that was quite interesting.
That's interesting.
They came from.
Maybe they made the cats swim. You know, cats don't like that.
Well, this was the parking lot of the bed and breakfast, so I don't.
No, they were
they
okay.
were not
They were
swimming
okay.
there.
Yeah, no.
But so our next probable guest would be Mr. or Doctor again. Doctor, we're lucky. We've gotten a lot of.
You know what
on.
always gets me too? People like scoff at the paranormal or stuff that's outside the normal range of things. And for example, Dr. Berne is obviously extraordinarily well educated, brilliant, attuned, everything person. And you know, people would say, "Dog, horse whisperer, yeah, sure," and yet I absolutely believe her. I mean, there's no reason not to. And but of all the guests that we have on, so many are so extraordinarily well educated.
Yes,
and really
as
well
is she,
educated.
and as have most of our guests. We've had a predominance of PhDs. Well, our next guest, should he continue to be interested in talking to us, will be Dr. Bernard Beltman, who is a psychiatrist and who has written a book about coincidence and synchronicity. So we're really looking forward to that, and we hope that he will be able to make our schedule and be our next guest. And so with that, shall we bid the group a fond farewell?
Nay.
Okay. And so we say goodbye from Shattered Reality. Okay.